Hi everyone, this is Alex for FNC Poker, and this is the third part of the series Me vs Solver. Today we're gonna play small blind versus button 3-bet pot, and I will just play as out of position. I will leave playing as the caller for the next video. Maybe I should have done this in the previous video of the series. By the way, if you haven't seen them, make sure to check them out. In those I play button versus big blind and small blind versus big blind. Very common spots, and I also explain, what we're doing here and how this is working. So that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so with 3-bet small blind, we get called by the button. What you need to know is that a small blind, I only allowed 25, 40, and 67% c-bets. The solver might pick some other sizes in some spots, but those are the only strategies I play. And yeah, I thought it was a bit useless to set other sizes, and also the size is set to automatic, so it will pick the one best size. For the button though, every street is set as dynamic because we never know, what sizes we're gonna face in game. It doesn't mean if we play a certain strategy, our opponent will play the same, so it's important to know how to react versus different sizes. Queen 5-4, on this board, in reality, I would play small bet. In a solver, I don't think it will make much of an EV difference, but in reality, I think it's a better size to use because it will induce more mistakes. It's kind of difficult not to overfold to something like a quarter or a third here. I think he is supposed to have almost no folds. And he's also supposed to find quite a bunch of very small raises, which in my experience and also from what we see in mass database analysis, doesn't really happen all that often. So personally, I would advocate for a smaller bet here. But if solver forces us to bet big, we have to be a bit more polar, and it doesn't mean that all of these hands are going to be bet. I think this will definitely be checked sometimes, but we roll very low. The low number is gonna be the aggressive number, so this one just gonna go for a bet. I think it's nicer not to block the flush draw and the backdoor flush draw because, we just block some hands that we want to get called by, but still definitely not pure checking this hand. Okay. So it is pure checking this hand. I will assume it's for the reason I mentioned. We block a lot of hands that we want to get called by while also unblocking bluffs. So I assume this is why it's gonna be a 100% check. Oh, again, I don't really play this strategy in practice, so yeah, I don't mind necessarily doing this mistake, but I think we figured out the concept that's going on, and the rule of the series, every time we make a mistake, we open the solver and see what went wrong. I think I have a good guess though. So you see very, very low c-betting frequency here. I think this is a mix of factors. Queen high is not gonna be as great for us as small blind, as king high or ace high or jack high. This is because he still has all the suited top pairs and also quite a bunch of offsuit top pairs as buttons. So on queen high we usually need to be a bit more careful than on higher card boards, but also this connectivity around the mid cards is definitely not great for us as small blind, neither is the flush draw. So yeah, this is a board where we should be quite careful on. And if we look at king queen, it doesn't seem to be a very clear pattern, but yeah, this is the one combo that checks back, that always checks back. And yeah, it probably has to do with blocking too many calls. Again, not an EV blunder or anything. But yeah, it's nice to think about these concepts, although sometimes they might be a bit overrated. Okay, he just folded flop, that's why nothing else happens, right? Okay, next hand we 3-bet queen jack, and we get a very similar board, queen 8-5. Apparently the solver really likes going big on this board and assumes we can't have a lot of c-bets. Still, queen high is going to be good enough to c-bet, and I think the fact that we now unblock all the flush draws, all the backdoors, and our kicker is still decent. I mean, he would have queen 10, maybe even queen 9 at some frequency, and there's a bunch of worse hands to call us, so I don't think this is necessarily a 100% bet, but I think it's going to be bet quite often. We roll low, so let's go for it. This time we nailed it! Just fold. Okay, nothing much to talk about. Actually, going back to this, I would be curious if we change it to a small size. Okay, so our betting frequency is still very low. Maybe I would do some mistakes here, because I would actually see that more often than I'm supposed to. Probably way more often than I'm supposed to. But yeah, thinking of... So look at this. How often do you guys see raises in this spot? Let me show you how extreme this gets. So we now bet 40%, and let's say we change this and he's never allowed to raise. Some people will raise here, and maybe this no lock is too extreme, but I think you see raises in these spots way, way less frequently than we are supposed to see them. And now you see he's actually almost folding nothing. And let's see what's happening with our c-betting strategy. So yeah, even if he's not raising, we only bet half the times. So maybe I should put a bit more studying into this spot and start using more polar, bigger sizes, because yeah, it doesn't seem like this accomplishes all that much. 8-7 deuce, this will be a very clear big size board, and I think something that's worth mentioning here is that our betting frequency on 8 high boards will be much lower compared to the 9 high boards, and this is because of how our 3-betting range looks like. As you see here, we have Jack 9, we are going to 3-bet King 9, Queen 9, 10 9, Ace 9, and a bunch of 9x combos in these positions. However, we're not going to 3-bet close to as many 8x, therefore there is going to be quite a big difference in strategy on these boards compared to the 9 highs. I think our c-betting frequency here should be something around 35 to 40% of the times, and this one, having a gut shot to the nuts and a backdoor flush draw, I think it will c-bet more often than the overall board frequency, so yeah, maybe we'd go for this half the times. We can also put in some check raises here, but for check raises it does get a bit tricky. We probably want to have, an offsuit backdoor flush draw or an actual flush draw. But yeah, I don't think check raising this is bad if we do it at a low frequency. So we roll low. We see this is actually a 100% check. Let's see what's going on. So let's filter for this king high no mate hand. We see that for most overcards, we do bet more often when we have a backdoor flush draw, and sometimes close to pure checking when we don't. And this seems to be a principle that does apply. However, when we look at Jack 9 and Jack 10, which are gut shots, we see that the pattern kind of changes a little bit. With 10-9, this applies as well, and I think the reason for this is going to be that, so when we don't bet this, the reason is, first of all, we do have less equity, but second, we block a bunch of autofolds in positions range when we have diamonds or clubs. However, when we have these gut shots, we probably don't block as many bluffs and as many autofolds, and this is because if he has a hand that contains a 9, a jack, a 10, it's quite likely that it's going to call even without a backdoor flush draw. So I would assume this is one factor, and the second factor is that when we bet, we will get shoved on at some frequency, and of course we don't want to fold a hand like a combo draw or a gut shot with a backdoor flush draw and 2 overcards. It's a bit better to fold, a lower equity hand. So I think this is probably what's going on here. It is quite an interesting concept, and I would be curious if it applies in different spots. So maybe if you guys want to explore that and let me know in the comments if this is a common pattern or not, I would appreciate that. Let's move back to the hand, where we made the blunder by betting, and now probably the tree is not gonna be super accurate. Once we get to the turn, and the turn is a deuce, we see solver likes to use a shove size here, which makes a lot of sense because our overpairs are still very strong here. The board is very drawy, so we do need to deny equity. Yeah, the SPR is already quite low, so we have just a slight overbet behind. So yeah, I think this size makes sense. In terms of our hand, even though we're not ever supposed to have this here, if we do, I think we're never ever going to shove this. It does block a lot of autofolds with the missed backdoor flash draw. And it's also very likely that we're gonna get called by a bunch of better no-mate hands. So if I were to construct my shoving range here, I think this would be definitely not making it in there. It would probably be one of the worst combos to shove. Well, we still have a gut shot and 2 overcards, so we can find worse combos to shove, like 5-4 of diamonds, I guess, but yeah, definitely a check. Facing a 1/3 bet, this is quite a good size because, yeah, it puts a lot of our hands like this one in quite a tough spot. It's definitely not a good combo to check shove because the reasons I already mentioned, but facing such a small bet, you see we don't need to be good very often in order to call. We can still win at showdown infrequently against, you know, some lower straight draws, lower flush draws, if he decides not to bluff the river, and we are also drawing to the nuts. We have 2 overcards. He's supposed to bet quite thin here. So yeah, I don't think we can ever fold this, but we're also not super happy with it. Nice, pure call. And when the river's a 6, I don't think we're gonna have any shoves here. I mean, we should barrel most of our strong hands on the turn, and if we decide not to barrel, we should check raise those. So yeah, I don't really see any donks here. Just gonna go for a check. And if we face a bet, the river decision is gonna be quite easy. Let's do one more hand then and wrap it up. Jack 7-6. Again, on a bunch of jack high boards, we can range bet and we can even increase the sizing to something like 40%. But when we see a flash draw and disconnectivity around middle cards, we need to shift to a bit of a more polar strategy. But jack high boards, remember, are still going to be quite good for us, so I would assume that even in a more polar strategy, especially on jack 6-7, where we still have all the 7s and all the 6s, I would personally 3-bet those pure. I think our betting frequency can still be relatively high, so I would say maybe like 45-50%, something like that. And 10s, I think it's going to be very close to a pure check, if not a pure check in such a polar strategy, so let's go for this. Yeah, very close to pure check. And now facing a small size, this basically indicates a mergy strategy, where he's probably going to bet a bunch of under pairs. He's supposed to bet a lot of 7x, jack x, even some ace highs. Stuff like ace queen, I assume, can go here for a very thin value bet. So 10s are definitely never folding. Talking about check raising, we definitely want to have stronger hands or bluffs. This one is just a middling strength hand, so I don't really see any other option but calling here. There's the 7, and for some of you this might look a bit scary because, well, middle cards are in his range, but remember that every time the board pairs, especially with these middle pairs, he's only gonna have 7x suited combos, and when that's double blocked by the board, there's actually not many trips in his range, so it shouldn't be a huge concern for us. Still, I wouldn't use any donks here, so gonna go for another check. He checks back and the river is an ace. I think in practice this card is going to be much better for us than it will be in the solver, because the solver would stab probably a decent frequency of ace highs on the flop, while in reality I think people tend to check back ace-x more often. Therefore, when the river is an ace, I think we're gonna have way more ace-x than he does. So yeah, quite a good river for us as out of position, but again, we can tens is way too good to bluff here, and it's way too weak to value bet, so I don't really see any bets here with this hand. If we were to face a bet, I don't think this is a great bluff catcher, because it blocks a bunch of natural draws that didn't get there, like 10-9 and queen 10. 10-8 he could have at low frequency in this configuration, so yeah, I think I would prefer to bluff catch other hands, not particularly this. Right, so this was everything for today. I really hope you found this video helpful, and I hope that it inspired you to, form a bit of a better thought process in this spot. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to our channel in order to see more of these videos. And of course, let us know in the comments if you have any feedback or if there's any videos you'd like us to make. Also, make sure to join our Discord community to connect with us, and I'll see you in the next video.